The disciples are astonished that Jesus says it is hard for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. Probably because they're thinking of Abraham, who had lots of riches, or Jacob, who had lots of riches, or Job, who lost everything but then gained everything back, and he was considered to be righteous. And they look at these people and say, these people were rich. These are the most holy people we have in our tradition. And it'll be hard for them to enter the kingdom of heaven. Jesus says it's easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for one who is rich to enter the kingdom of God. And we remember that this came immediately after yesterday's gospel about the rich young man who was invited by Jesus to sell everything he had, give it to the poor, and then to follow him. And he goes away sad. And we look and we say, okay, what does this mean for us today? And in my own prayer this morning, I was looking through my own life and saying, what is it that God is asking me to give up? What is it that God is asking me to surrender to Him? And I see kind of two different things that really keep, when we have riches, when we have money, when we have things, that keep us from the kingdom of God, from the kingdom of heaven. Not that rich people can't enter the kingdom, because there have been rich saints, King Louis and other such people. But there are two pieces of this that can keep us from the kingdom of God, I think. One is the attachment to these things. That when we're attached to the things of this earth, we're not attached to the things of heaven. So we have to look through our lives and say, what am I attached to? And it's a lot easier to say, oh yeah, I'm not attached to that, I'm not attached to that, I'm not attached to that, until there's a moment where we have to surrender it. As a priest friend of mine likes to say, I think I've surrendered everything to God until He asks me for something I'm not ready to give up. So we have to look through our lives seriously and say, if God asked me to give this up, how much of a hardship would it be for me to be able to let it go? And in that honesty, we may say, ooh, this is very difficult. I need to ask God to help me to detach from this. So attachment to worldly things is one of the things that keeps us from the kingdom of heaven. The other piece with that is that I look at who am I relying on, or what am I relying on? And God invites us to rely on Him. That when we have riches, very often we rely on them. Whether they be the physical riches of this world, or even our own riches of intelligence or ingenuity or our hard work or whatever, because everything we have can be taken away. Everything we have can be taken away. One of my friends from my first parish was telling me one day that he had worked and worked. He wanted to get his million, as he said. He worked and he worked over the course of the years with his having a wife and children and all these things, to save up and to save up so that he could have his million. And then he got there. He got his $1 million. Was he happy at that moment? No, because then he said, well, now I need to protect that million. And so he's doing everything he can to kind of build it up on this side and build it up on this side, make sure it's protected and make sure nothing ever happens to it. And he realized that he got this $1 million to keep himself secure. But now he's insecure about his $1 million. He thought he could rely on that. He said, I have to come to realize I have to rely completely and totally on God. And God is inviting us to rely totally and completely on Him. He says in the gospel today, whoever has given up houses or brothers or sisters or father or mother or children or lands for my sake and the sake of my name will receive 100 times more. Don't you know I'll take care of you? Don't you know I'll take care of you? Again, I'm not saying that all of us are called to evangelical poverty. There are some precious few, like the Franciscans and the like, who are called to that poverty where we give up everything. But we are called, each of us, to a gospel simplicity of life, where we rely on God, not on our things. And so I invite you today, really look at your lives and say, what are the things I'm attached to? That it would be difficult for me to say, okay, I need to separate myself from this for the sake of God. And in what ways am I relying on God? And in what ways do I rely on the things of this earth? Asking God for that help to be able to detach and to rely completely and explicitly and constantly on Him and His love.